everyone. A very warm welcome to another exciting episode of Psychology Talks. And in this episode, we're going to talk about transforming leadership in education. Education system has been very old. I mean, if you trace back, it's still almost 400-year-old system, and we've been teaching the same way that 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 we used to teach like 400 years ago. So I think with lots of development in AI and in technology, it's time to actually transform education system also. And that's why, like, as a lot of people already know, that my son Zoraib is very vocal about bringing about change in education system, and he's written the book, and that's why I'm also passionate about it, and I'm helping him to follow his dream to bring about this change, and in whatever way I can. And that's why I'm also bringing up people together who are on the mission to do something for the education system. And that's the reason why today I'm so honored to have our guest, Laurence Brown, with us. He is a renowned expert in executive leadership training and founder of Future Vision 2030. Laurence PhD research-led programs and innovative training strategies have reshaped leadership across the GCC region, impacting top organizations like Aramco and many other organizations, especially in GCC and Middle East. So, and he's done a lot of amazing work in this field. So let's welcome Laurence. Hello, Laurence. Thank you so much for joining. It's really an honor to have you with us.
Nice to see you. It's afternoon here, late afternoon. So good afternoon and good evening to you in Jeddah. Hi, Jackie.
Yeah. Hi. So I actually gave a very short introduction that you have transformed leadership in education system and you've done a lot of work. But just tell us a bit about yourself so our audience get to know you better.
Okay. I came to academic education, higher education late because I failed everything at school. I left school with 1 O level, the lowest grade in English you could possibly get, and I failed everything else. So I left school thinking I couldn't do anything. And I went to work for nearly 10 years and did really well. I did really well in everything I did. And I suddenly realized that I now had the autonomy to do the higher or further education that I wanted to do, not that I was being pushed to do by my teacher father, right? So I was pushing back a little bit all the way through. And so my career has been, I guess, looking back on it retrospectively for 40 years, just trying to give other young people the self-esteem that they know they can do it. They know they can do it.
Yeah.
Hacks, if you like, the word we would use now is kind of hacks in emotional intelligence, but back then it was simply showing them the way by engaging every classroom and every task.
Yeah, I think that's very true. A lot of people, especially students, are frustrated because of the system. I think because when not everyone is same, or not everyone has the same capability, same skills, and I think when the system tries to fit in to just one approach or in a box, I think that's where people who do not fit in, who may be superior to the system or who may be just different, feel more frustration. And I think failing to the system doesn't mean that they don't have the capability. As you said, that you had failed in the system, but you did really well out of the system. You created your system. And as like when I was giving the introduction, that you have a very unique approach to leadership, right? Which actually transform many companies, organizations. So tell us a bit about your approach. That what is different in your approach?
I think it's allowing, enabling, facilitating the opportunities that I forged for myself that take us out of the norm, push back against the norm. Do you know, I've been really lucky, I have to say. Wherever I've worked in the last 25 years, I've been given pretty much full autonomy. leader, as an educational leader. And I think you could only get that in the Middle East. You could only get that where I've worked in Abu Dhabi or Dubai or Bahrain, or Saudi Arabia, Singapore, not so much. Yeah, well, Singapore as well. Singapore, I was the transnational dean for Raffles Education. So I covered 22 different colleges in 18 different countries. So I saw the whole of Asia as quality assurance leader. Pakistan, Islamabad from Lahore to Singapore to Mumbai to New Delhi to Malaysia to Jakarta to China, Shanghai, even down to Australia. I mean, I covered all of those colleges, and my job was to look at all of the final degree work for their 14 degrees and their master's degrees, and then equivalence the grades, because I was the external examiner. I was in charge of making sure that if you did a degree in fashion design in Singapore, you were graded in the same way with the same level of fair and equitable grading that you would have in Jakarta or Sydney. So it gave me a good overview of what was going on across Asia.
So it's, I would say that kind of is standardizing the same kind of grades and their accomplishment, right? Like, for example, so the degree would actually be equivalent everywhere in the globe, right?
Yeah, exactly that. But of course, it doesn't happen like that. It's never that simple, is it?
Of
And
course.
I think one of the complexities is expectations. And as I've gone through the research for the last 20 years in this region in the Middle East, particularly, I've noticed that every time I go into a training room now for a week with a group of people, could be 10, could be 20, could be even 30. I had 67 once, 67 miners coming out of the mines in Yorkshire, coming into one room for training with me. But I've noticed the importance of stopping at certain words, which we take for granted, especially, of course, multicultural environments, multilinguistic environments, and making sure everybody in the room is on the same page. And I find I do that more and more now, because people stop and they go, I get it now. Whereas if you didn't think about it, you would just take it for granted.
Yeah. So how do you do that? Because everyone is different. I mean, it's to me, it's a complicated task, very complex task to actually kind of matching the same or standardizing the same, because people have different capabilities, and then of course there's so much impact of the culture, upbringing, and environment, which is completely different. Like if you compare two countries, even like you are based in UK and like I'm in Saudi Arabia, so the people in UK are completely different from the people in Saudi Arabia, and the same goes with their education system and their expectations also. So I'm sure it's a very complicated and very complex task, but how do you do that? How do you actually do this? I kind of standardize this.
Okay, well, other than grading, because that grading is you literally, when you're grading in an international environment, you might grade and you say, okay, well, this level of work for these 3 works, they were given A's, and these were given D's. But if I go to Shanghai for the same degree with the same learning outcomes, then why have I got 15 A's out of 20 instead of 3? So let me look at those, and I've got to bring those down or take the others, to a level where they're equivalents. But you mentioned plagiarism. You mentioned plagiarism. Well, okay, how about this? What would you do if you were the team program chair, you were in charge of a degree program, and you get 2 essays that are absolutely identical with different names on it? I'm talking about 3rd-year students. What would you do? What would you do?
Yeah, of course. That's I always I mean, maybe I just shouldn't be using that word, but I hate plagiarism. I mean, literally, it's cheating, completely cheating. So this is for me,
But you see, it's easy to say these words, but you're not there in their minds at that time.
yeah.
Let's say you've got 2 students, both of them 20, 21. They come to you and you call them into the office and you say, you did a great essay, but can you explain to me why they're identical? And they say, well, we've worked together. What? Well, we've been together for 3 years in this degree, and we've always done everything together, so we do everything together.
Oh.
Okay. Do you not see a problem with that? No.
Mhm.
Why do you see a problem? Do you get that the way I use plagiarism, you just used it. You said a strong word. You said, I hate plagiarism.
Yeah.
Different if you come from their background. They don't get it because they've never really had it drilled into them or practiced it, or their teachers or professors have not brought it up along the way. So now they're going, whoa, what's your problem? Now, if
Yeah.
you were in that situation, because I've been in that situation,
Yeah.
just one example, if
Mhm.
you were in that situation, how would you deal with that? How would you very quickly get them to understand it is a problem? You've probably got 2 minutes. How would
Yeah.
you get them to understand it is actually a problem? What would you say to
Yeah.
them?
It's I mean, it's now because since you asked them that what is this, of course, it changes the complete mindset, right? The way we are approaching, because they're not seeing. To me, like the plagiarism, what I was just thinking is that, copy pasting from different sources and using the words. So that is or something. But if they've been working together, it's a completely different thing. So I would definitely ask them. I think the best way to make other people understand, ask them question, and then they would think in that way that, okay, that could happen. So I would just,
Yeah.
first of all, ask them that what is plagiarism to them, and
Yeah.
what is them? Why do they think that it doesn't? And then, of course, then I will actually share my opinion that why plagiarism is not right, because to me, the main thing that matters is their own creativity, or their own the authenticity, right? Their own word that coming from their mind, right? That's what important. So if they if a teacher make their students understand the reason why they've been asked for doing this anything, I think they become naturally driven to do what teacher is saying. So that's what I've seen when I teach my kids, because I never I'm not a teacher, but when I actually teach my kids, they always ask me the reason why do I need to do this, and they will just
Yeah.
keep on asking this. And then when I actually satisfy them and when I give them the reason, they feel more like satisfied, and then they're more driven to actually do whatever I've been asking to do that.
The people who are in there, I mean, I know one of my friends is there, for example. He just said hello to me. Hi, Mushtaq. Can they get into the chat and start posting questions now? Can they start posting their thoughts in there?
Yeah, please. Like, yeah, Mushtaq is saying that he's worked with you and he's saying that you're a great. So thank you so much, Mushtaq, for actually sharing the comment. And if anyone has a question, please feel free to ask, and we'll give the answer to this question.
Yeah, because I need their input. What
Yeah.
I said to the
Yeah.
two 20-year-olds
Mhm.
was, do you not see a problem with this? And they said, no, we don't see a problem. We've always done it. I said, what if 30 people all brought me the same essay? Then they see the problem.
Yeah.
Then they go, okay. Then they get it.
Yeah.
But you can't blame them. I had another situation. I'll give you another
Okay.
situation where this is, I guess, looking back on it, an empathetic approach rather than the hard approach. So instead of the normal academic policies approach, this is me as an individual saying, look, I love this essay you gave me. It's wonderful. But I have to tell you that it was written by Mary Ellis in 1997 in Canada.
And
Do
yeah.
you know what the student said?
Then what they say?
I paid him 500 reals to write that for me. What would you do? Now, we know that for example, Western accredited institutions that we're working with, our partnership and our verification and our validation, that we should kick that student out of the degree. They should be kicked out. But if they don't understand what they've done wrong, We can't do that. We mustn't. We must be more empathetic and say, well, actually, okay, I'll give you, you didn't understand this, but because someone else has written it, I can't accept it. And I don't want to fail you. So could you tomorrow give me another essay that you've written and just let me see what you've written? I don't mind, even if I just give it a D, but I need you to apply the effort. Could you do that? Now, isn't that a better approach than saying, okay, you're off the degree, khalas, done?
Yeah.
Because what are they going to learn from that? What life lessons are they going to learn from that?
Yeah, I think, you actually just explain it so well that, how to actually be in their shoes and understand their the perspective, and then actually make them understand. And that's amazing. That's amazing. So you said that, like, you of course you're using all these technique, and especially the emotional intelligence you mentioned. So how do you think that, I mean, as you already mentioned that, usually the degrees don't accept all these things, but not everybody practice all this emotional intelligence or empathy. What do you think, how they can be more empathetic towards the students? Because the system is that if you find the plagiarism, kick them out from this from their program, and then maybe they'll learn this lesson. But how leaders can practice emotional intelligence in their daily lives or in their daily practices? Yeah.
Whether they're academic leadership, whether they're in educational leadership at further education, schools, or higher education, it's the same with leadership in corporations. If you've got the generational changes, like at the moment, for example, we've got more or less 3 generations across most companies in the Middle East, which is where we work. Mushtaq and I work there. So, well, Mushtaq and I are back in England now, but we have worked there for a long time. You've got 3 generations, and I've seen since I've arrived 25 years ago in the Middle East, the very distinct mismatch of expectations that are between senior leadership, medium leadership, middle leadership, and the young people who are coming in as new graduates. And that's got much wider of late. Now, the ways in which the senior leadership 20 years ago were working was they would not listen to the and I was working in a company where I was in charge of like 300 young people, and they fairly insisted on a meeting with senior management. So we had the directors and we had 7 or 8 senior managers there and 100 young people, and it got pretty nasty. It was the first time in my life I'd seen young people stand up to VPs, literally stand up and say things like, I'm part of the Google generation. On this phone, I can get 300,000 answers in 0.4 of a second. I've been asking you questions for 4 years and you've not answered it. I mean, it got that. This is a fairly new thing. People actually resigning from some of the best companies in the Middle East simply because they're not being given the training choices they know they want. And if they're not being given those opportunities, they're free to walk because they can get jobs elsewhere. Some of my young people were being headhunted through LinkedIn. I had one young person come up to me again on the phone, say, look, Laurence, look at this. I've just been offered 2 jobs this week without interviews.
Wow.
These are better jobs than I've got now, and I'm going in at high. Should I take these jobs, Laurence, or should I stay the next 4 years or 8 years and see if I'm going to get promoted? Yeah, young people are being feted. What's this? I also have a request since I study counselling. We're going to practicum. I want to inquire from you to at least have 2 online sessions from which we can learn from you the nature of counselling. Oh, yeah, okay, why not?
Yeah,
I'll put my email in here.
yes, I think we should do something like this.
Do something like this. We should extend this. So this is my email. Do you mean counseling or do you mean coaching?
I think he wants more coaching, and then you can connect with you. His I'll like, his name is Shoji, right? Shoji Vikesa. Okay, so this is, I'm going to show the email, and there you can actually
Yeah, because it says private chat.
Yeah, it's
Oh, well, look, I've just found all the
this is
comments. Oh,
yes,
hello.
and then yeah,
Oh, hello,
and I'm
Jackie.
just also posted in the comments. So this
Hi,
is the
Laura.
email. Okay, so you can
Okay,
actually
we've got that. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, you can reach out to him directly, and that would be really wonderful, because if people get the right mentorship, I know that their lives change. So yeah, so now going back to actually to this question that you actually already pointed out, that now times are changing, right? And one of the biggest catalyst of this change is AI, because the access to knowledge is so handy at this because of the AI, that we can do this, and we can do not only like the knowledge, we can do a lot of things with AI, and that is one reason that that is bringing about the change. But when we look at the education system, and when we look at all those systems, they're still operating in an old way, in a very old fashioned way. What do you think, how we can bring about that change?
Okay. I was quite excited to be invited to go to Pakistan again to work as director of quality for the City School Group, which you know is huge.
Yeah.
Nearly 200,000 students across. And I was a bit shocked, by what I saw, especially in the A-level groups with your celebrity teachers, and the lack of compassion and the lack of empathy and the didactic way of teaching, tick box teaching, I call it. And I've seen this elsewhere. I've seen this even in American school systems and British school systems, where the teachers are under such duress to get the syllabus finished. But there's so much disruption in the classroom that they're finding it very difficult. So what they do is they dump it on the kids to take home, and
Yeah.
they tick their boxes that they've covered the syllabus. Every week they tick their boxes. Covered it, covered it, covered it. My daughter's coming back and sitting at this very desk I'm sitting at now,
Yeah.
which was actually built by my father, designed and built by my father
Wow.
70 years ago for his final degree program. He did a woodwork degree. So I'm sitting at this very same table that my daughter sat at, crying at 11 o'clock at night because she hasn't finished her homework. And this is only 4 or 5 years ago. And why? Because the teachers do not have the luxury of time to turn a syllabus into an engaging curriculum. They're not incentivized to tick the box, get the exams results we need, so that in the rankings we can stay up as high as we were last year and the year before. The whole system is skewed to control. And if you think about what would England be like with 8 million young people every day not at school? 8 million young people not sitting in school desks, but out walking the streets. It wouldn't be safe. It's like football matches on a Saturday afternoon. Why do they do football matches in stadiums on a Saturday afternoon, Ambry?
Yeah, just to keep them busy, right? Of course.
It's the old amphitheater. Put the young men into an amphitheater and let them fight each other, because we can control that. They're corralled. So traditionally it was Saturday afternoon because everybody's off work, but it was to keep guys who were drinking off the streets, so mum can take the kids and go and do the weekly shopping. It's a safety feature. It's a social safety feature. It's keeping the streets safe. And when I was growing up, Mushtaq won't remember this. He's too young. When I was growing up in England, you didn't go anywhere near a soccer stadium on a Saturday afternoon because it was dangerous. Hooliganism was violent. Helicopters and police dogs. It was policemen being spat at and beaten up. And so one of the reasons for school is to put those people into a formalized, regimented rows and to keep them out of harm's way, if you like, for their own sake, everybody else's. But it's basically a form of control, and that's why they control the examination system. So it's set that we must stick to this regular academic curriculum. And I was one who fell through the cracks 50 years ago. I'd already fallen through the cracks half a century ago. So if we assume that each school generation is 5 years, that's 10 school generations since I failed, who have also been disenchanted. If 30% of people on the bell curve are designed to fail, 30% are designed to fail.
Mhm.
Is that
Yes.
them failing the school system, or as Sir Ken Robinson says, no, that's the school system failing them.
Yes.
But they're being blamed. Their self-esteem is crushed, or they have none. The whole system is flawed to status quo and power ratios. It's a Victorian system of education, as you said at the beginning, and it's not going to change until we change the way government accepts the fact
Mhm.
that transformation is there. So kids are pushing back now.
Yes.
Could you put those links into the chat
Yes.
I gave you?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
but if
I'll
you put
put
it in
it
the chat,
in the chat also,
yeah,
so like people can actually uh, get this. Because
yeah,
so tell us a bit about this like future forward organization and the
yeah.
Vision 2030 organization that you've been like the work here, you've been involved in all these things to bring about all these change. So tell us a bit about all these initiatives.
Okay. I don't believe you can change the system unless it's from the
Mm-hmm.
inside. A social pull, maybe even a
Mm-hmm.
technological pull, or
Mm-hmm.
a social push. It doesn't. It's not going to come from the government. It's not going to come from the powers that be, because they want to retain the power that they've got. They want to
Yeah.
keep the education system as is. And
Mm-hmm.
also, if you look at professional politicians these days, when I was a boy, we didn't really have professional politicians. We had people who cared. But now
Yeah.
they only care about, I mean, I'm being generalized, in the UK, for example, and as is proven in the US recently, it's all
Mm-hmm.
about me, and my 15 minutes of fame and getting in front of the TV cameras. It wasn't like that 50 years ago.
Yeah. Yes.
People genuinely cared for their constituents. Now they only seem to care. I mean, I'm generalizing dreadfully, and it's not fair on the politicians who, so many of them do care, but are hidebound. Like teachers, they're tied to the
Yeah.
curriculum. I did a huge project. I was invited to consult for the Ministry of Education. It doesn't matter where.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted e-learning. Now, I'm going back a long way. I'm going back 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Actually, no, 15 years. I'm going back
Okay.
15 years. They wanted e-learning nationally. Could I come in and work with their consultant? And how would we go about it? So we spent 8 months working on this project. Every step of implementation, from training to stakeholder groups to the new education portal, the whole works. So that's 2 of us working for 8 months. That's 16 months of work.
Okay.
We had it ready, and we thought, what's the best way to describe this to the bosses of the Ministry of Education? So we took a school gym and we printed out the mapping on mind mapping, and we put it around the school gym on geographical paper that makes
Okay.
map, the widest paper we could print it on. And it
Mm-hmm.
went all the way around and showed the implementation plan over the next 3 years. By the time they got to the end of the first wall, those people who were in charge had glazed over. They'd gone. And if you're a teacher, you can read a room. You walk in, you can see whether you've lost the engagement. Here, or here.
Mm-hmm.
Blank. They were gone. They were just being polite and nodding their heads. They were lost. They didn't even understand when they gave us the brief how complicated and how long a process it was going to be. They had
Mm-hmm.
no idea. So it failed. 16 months of work failed because
Oh.
they couldn't take teachers out of the classroom to train them, because they were so tied to the timetable. They were
Yeah.
not prepared to break that, to open it up for
Mm-hmm.
flexibility in order to train teachers in these
Mm-hmm.
new skill sets that they needed for e-learning. So the whole system failed. In other
Yeah.
words, if we go back to what I suggested earlier about not taking for granted that what I understand from this term and what you understand from this term meet, that are probably at odds with each other.
Mm-hmm.
When you say e-learning to me and the consultant, the European consultant I worked with, we have this in our mind. What we did around that gymnasium wall, every step of every aspect, 16 months of work.
Yes.
And then it fails at the first hurdle, the first
Mhm.
wall, because they're going, well, what is all this? Why are you doing all this? We just asked for e-learning. We didn't ask for all this. Well, actually, you
Yeah.
did. This is e-learning. No. E-learning is when we take our school books that we print ourselves, and we
Yes.
scan every page in every topic for every year, and we put them on a DVD and we give them to the young people.
Yeah.
That's e-learning. Why have you done all this? That's not e-learning. That's just giving them soft copies of the book. Yeah, that's
Yes.
because they're using a laptop.
Yes. There's no learning. I mean, it's just the matter. I mean, it's you're doing. It's
It goes back.
that's the main problem. I mean, I would see in the education system. It's just memorizing facts or reading the books. And that's what like my son always say that, Mama, you're just asking me to memorize these facts, but you're not giving me the learning. And that's what when he says that, I said, oh yes, you're right. And then of course the whole project of like our began. But and I see the same thing. I mean, the frustration of young minds even these days, because they have the access to the knowledge and they can learn much faster if they don't follow the system, what education system is giving them. And that's what like my son keeps on telling me, that that he can understand the concept much better by himself studying. And it's not only my son is saying, because the other kids are also saying. We had like done this summit like last month, and we got the same thing from other kids as well, that they want to learn from a different way now. It's not the same. It shouldn't be the same way, like teacher telling them in a kind of a lecture situation when they just teach them. They need some more, I would say, medium to learn and to experience what they have been taught. And I think that would be more impactful as well.
Yeah. So actually bringing in VR or bringing in AI or
Yes.
bringing in even just Google and YouTube into the
Yes.
classroom, which they are doing, they're trying to do, but they're not funded. There isn't the time allocated. It would take up time away from the preparation for the examinations. And that's what's primary, because if they're not, especially in English schools, if they're not ranked at the same level of ranking or higher than they were a couple of years ago, they might lose funding. And they're desperate for funding. And these professional politicians they rotate every 4 years. It's a bit like companies, right? They rotate mid-managements who are on the high potential, and every 6 or 7 months they go to a different department to learn how that works. But what value are they bringing? If it takes them 6 months to get to know people and then begin to understand how it's working, and they're determined to show that they're capable of making a really serious change, they implement a change and run away.
Yeah.
They moved on. And then the next person comes in and goes, well, what's this? What's been going on here? Well, the other manager had this idea but it wasn't implemented. Nothing gets done. And if you've got 4 years as an education minister in England, and then you move on and you rotate, but you're actually an economist, or you're actually not a teacher, you've never been in a classroom except when you were at school 30 years. Like, are you surprised? Nothing works. Nothing gets changed. What's the turnover in India and Pakistan, for example? Not Asia, I'm going to say India and Pakistan because I know that. What do you think the turnover is in your average school system? The number
I think it's very high. But I don't know.
40% every year. If you're in charge of quality, how can you implement anything if let's say even only 30% or 20% turn over every year, move and leave? We can't get physics teachers, we can't get maths teachers. Trainee teachers come in, they quit, they leave within a couple of years. Why? Well, the press is saying at the moment, and there's a lot of talk about this, it's because we do not have working flexibility in the school system. There's no flexibility. And if you look at higher education, in the last 7 or 8 years in England, professors have lost tenure. They're not being given re-contracts, only at 0 contract hours. So if they're only doing 3 hours of work, we only need you 3 hours next week. So Stephen, if you could come in, Dr. Stephen, if you just come in for those 3 hours, we'll pay you for those 3 hours. Well, I can't pay my mortgage. It's not my problem. The students no longer want to sit through 90 minutes of didactic professors throwing nuggets of gold at the student who are waiting to catch. They're gone in 10 minutes. They just switch off. Like I was, let's switch off at school. They're out the window with the fairies because nothing is engaging them. So they're not going to lectures, which is why podcasts are becoming so popular now in universities in England. Everything's recorded because they can't be bothered to go to the classes because they're wasting time. So they're taking back control of their time.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember you said that. Yeah, I think you post also your podcast, like 30 minutes podcast or something, very short podcast, right? So tell us a bit more about it. That what do you post over there? And you say that a lot of students actually get really interested in your podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, they during lockdown, my family had just come back, pretty much just before lockdown. I'd come back to England because I'd retired from Aramco, and I got bored. I mean, I was always interested in why schools weren't delivering life skills, for essential life for skill. They weren't even doing it covertly. Exam. The exams are set, national testing systems. So I thought, well, if you give hello, Ahmed. Hello, my dear.
Yeah.
So if you give young people choice, Ahmed is a fine example of this. He watched me work through a 4-year change transition in one of the big companies in Saudi Arabia, whereby I wanted to give young people like Ahmed choice in their training. So I fought and I pushed and I fought the VP and I pushed the GMs and I pushed everybody to do proof of concept. And I brought in short e-learning online courses that I knew the young people wanted and would be excited for. And they went wild for it. But it took years of work. Accepted. One GM said, okay, try it, Laurence. In our department, try it. And I put 100 out there. The very next morning at 8 o'clock, this young lady rang my phone in the office. Laurence, I want to do 6 of these. I want to do them now. I want to do the excitement, the motivation, the level, the morale. It just shot up. It was, oh my God, it was incredible. It was absolutely fantastic. But it was a 4-year journey to get that choice of which do you want to do. You can do it off your own back in your own time. It was a 4-year journey to get those into training history, because I had to rewrite the general instruction manual for the whole company in order that managers had a rationale to say, okay, you can put that in your training history. And that's exactly what I'm talking about, that level of choice that is so necessary in schools. So if you look at Northern Europe, places like Finland and Norway and Sweden, they leave school at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 1:30 at 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
Like in Saudi, they've gone home, but they don't have homework. Why not? Why are we not giving them homework, but they're succeeding? Why? Because they've got choice. And if they've got choice how they spend their time, they're motivated to spend time. If you treat children like children, they behave like children all the way through school. 16-year-olds behaving like 14-year-olds, misbehaving in the classroom. If you treat them like adults, they generally behave like adults. They take responsibility. So if you flip the class, you put the onus on them to do the teaching or facilitation. I've done it so many times. I did it 25 years ago in the Middle East for a whole degree program. I flipped the learning. And I would never, ever go back to doing it in a didactic fashion again. So that's why coaching skills. Now we look at these links that you've got here.
Yeah. I've actually shared it for these quite many times. This teach pitch about this. Yeah.
Well, Teach the Future was 6 or 7 young people 6 or 7 years ago, 8 years ago.
This
We wondered why the school curriculum was not talking about climate change. So what they did was they took to social media and they put out a a survey thing on the internet, and they said, if you could sign this, then we can pick up names, we can pick up numbers, and we can take this to the government. And if we get 100,000 signatures on this, then we can actually talk about this in Parliament. And they did. And they went to Parliament and they rationalized their argument very well. Now, I asked you to put up there another link from Izzy.
Okay.
And Izzy stands up in Parliament. She's a young lady. She's about 17. And she talks about her school education and how she goes through school. Izzy Garbutt, she's called.
Okay. Yeah.
And
This I'm gonna put it here.
yeah, thank you. It's a very important video to watch. It's got subtitles because she comes from the
Yeah.
north. She comes from the north. I can see
Yeah.
Uzma's laughing now. I can hear her laughing. So it's got subtitles,
So yeah,
subtitles,
this
not
one.
subtitles because you'll need them, right? And she gives a very compelling argument for why schools should transform in order to prepare young people for
Yeah.
the skills for life they're going to need in this tsunami of change that's coming their way. So
Yeah.
if people copy these links, you'll find
Yeah.
Teach Pitch. Teach
Yeah.
Pitch started a few years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, with a lady setting up a social media blog where young trainee teachers could ask older teachers for advice. And it's
Mhm.
taken off. She's got something like 50,000 people subscribing to it now. And it's gone worldwide. She's taking it out of, and it's now moved across to using technology. Because you can't release teachers from the curriculum, how can you train and retrain? How can a
Yeah.
physics teacher who's been doing it 20 years understand what's going on in physics?
Yeah.
Because
Ab-
they're too busy marking papers and too busy doing, they don't have the time to go out and retrain. Neither do they have the incentive.
Absolutely.
So
So yeah.
these are really important, I think, for people to
Yeah.
look at.
Yeah, I
What's
think
your,
we have a question here that beyond structure changes, how can educational leader foster a culture of innovation and collaboration among teacher and staff? And what specific strategies have you found most effective in empowering educators to become agent of change within their classrooms and schools?
that's a classic question to ask because it really doesn't have an answer. It depends on the culture. Let's say, for example, you want to improve schools in Singapore or India or Pakistan or many Asian countries, especially.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. You can't because parents expect it to stay as it was for them when they were at school. I studied hard for my O levels and A levels. You
Yeah.
study hard for your A. Why should you have it
Yeah.
different than I had it? But there's a support mechanism. You know, the mums will sit down with the kids and they'll come home at 3:30, 4 o'clock, and she'll sit down with grandma and they'll go through the kids' homework when they'll spend time supporting. It becomes a supportive environment. Doesn't happen across the Middle East. Kids come
Yeah.
home with those suitcases full of books and they have to start going through them. You very rarely get parents sitting in with that same level of impetus to
Yeah.
help and support. The maids might have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Expect you cannot go against parental expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Now you go to America and you go to certain areas and they're having town hall meetings and people stand up in a small area like Orange County, for example, and they'll say, well, we think our kids need more life skills.
Yeah.
So, Laurence has got this website where there's over 100 life skill podcasts, 10, 15 minutes. Kids can listen to them on the bus going home. And if they're really interested in the topic, like mood swings, for example,
Mm-hmm.
or bullying,
Yeah.
or the International Monetary Fund, what is it? Why is it
Mm-hmm.
important? Mortgages, interest rates, banking, all of these things they don't know about, listen to Izzy Garbutt's video.
Yes.
Then,
Yeah.
then they might think,
Listen.
okay, this is really interesting. Oh, look, I can get a certificate for this. If I spend the
Mhm.
next 2 hours going through this e-learning certificate,
Yeah.
validated, accredited in the UK by the National Life Skills Academy, then I
Yeah.
can download it. How does that make them feel when they've never had a certificate at school before for anything? They're 14 years old and they
Mm.
can get this certificate that says, you've achieved this. You now understand about this topic, this life skill. And when they
Mhm.
go to college, they've got 10 of these to put into their form or to put into their application. It shows
Wow.
a breadth. But the main thing is it builds that self-confidence. Schools
Yeah.
don't do that.
Listen, very true. I know this is. I know that I can actually. This is such a vast topic, and I can actually go on and on discussing with you. And but I think the time is actually limited,
Yeah,
and it's we
yeah.
reached to and to the time, like it's at the end of the show. So I will just ask one last question, that what one advice would you give to our, I would say, students, because I know teachers are very much busy with their curriculum to follow and everything. So what one advice would you give to the student to maybe to bring about the change in the education system? Because I know that I think they are the one who can do this now.
You don't want to ask me that. because I'm gonna say you need a revolution. You need to get together, and you need to push back big time, like
Yes.
Teach the Future. Now they've got hundreds of thousands of people. They broke down the silos of the curriculum walls. Now, links have been made across the British school education in the last 3-4 years to bring climate change into every discipline. Those kids did that. The only way to do it is from the inside. It's never going to happen from the outside. But what I was going to say about town halls is that you can stand up and you can suggest to a group of educator, let's say school governors and school, you can say, we'd like a change. We'd like you to do this. And they can do it because they're not held by federal government. They're a little minority and they can do it themselves. That's beginning to happen. It started in Australia 30 years ago, where they took, Australia's way ahead of most of Western countries when it comes to an education that prepares young people for the future. So I'm going to try and answer Shogi's question. And I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to take it away with
I will put this in the chat or something. No problem. Actually, you can when we finish the live, you can actually get it from the comments section, and I can copy from there, and it's okay. So
then you must come to me. My email's on there, so you must come to me.
Yeah. I think so. So the best way to reach out to you, I know that a lot of people want to reach out to you because from our show also, I'll show the this is the email where you can actually reach out to Laurence, and he will be a great help. I know that he's amazing. So whoever wants to reach out to the to Laurence, please go to this to reach him through this email. And I think you also have these websites, right? Future WD. This is also yours website, or
no,
yes.
no, Future Forward. No, that's no. That's different.
Okay.
That's different.
Okay, so I think the best way is to reach out through this email. I think that would be great, and I will also put this email in the comments later on. I've already put it in the but it goes to the YouTube. So on LinkedIn, I'll just do this when this show will be finished, and you can connect to Laurence on LinkedIn. And there's a ticker going on. You can just see. I've also put this link in the comment section, so you can just click and go and connect with Laurence and learn a lot from him. So anyways, thank you so much for joining. I've been looking forward to this session, and I know that, of course, like you have the wealth of knowledge, and you know that how to actually put into action, and you've been doing great work. So I think we need more people like you. So maybe we can actually bring some change in the system. So thank you for all you do for education system and helping people to bring about change and to transform their lives. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your knowledge, wisdom. Thank you. And thanks to all those who actually joined through the comment, like Shoji, Ahmad, Uzma, Mushtaq, and so many, like Jackie. Thank you so much.
All right, you take care, everybody.
Okay, yeah. Bye.
Revolt. That's what we need.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'll see you there. All right. Thanks very much indeed. Bye, everybody. Bye.